The race for the captaincy is heating up as a decision seems imminent. The Senators have many candidates with a strong case. However, the top two has never been so obvious. Hello everyone, I am Eoghan Drumm and welcome to Senators Digest, where we talk all things Ottawa Senators. Today we'll be getting into the updates regarding the captaincy for the Ottawa Senators. Who are the top two candidates at this point? And who do I think out of those two deserves to be wearing the C next season? We'll be getting into all of that this episode. But before we do, please go down and hit that subscribe button. We notice around 87% of our viewers are not subscribed, and we are constantly trying to build our audience. So if you are an Ottawa Senators fan, or even just a fan of the league and want to stay in touch with all things Senators, whether that be news, updates, reports, and rumors, this is the place for you. So please go down and hit that subscribe button. Alright, so like I said, the Senators captaincy race is really picking up pace in the past few days as there seems to be a decision very, very close. But who are the main candidates at this point? I will share that with you very shortly. I'm just going to share an update that Bruce Garriock reported is that General Manager Steve Staios is closing on decision in tandem with head coach Travis Green. And he adds, the belief is that the Senators would like to name a captain before training camp opens on September 16th. So that is coming up very close. We're just about 3 weeks away from the start of training camp, maybe even a little less than that. And then the start of the season at the end of September. So it's getting really close. And the Sens, like we saw there, they want to have this captain name before the season gets started so that whole distraction is out of the picture. Because if this bleeds into the start of the season and they don't have a captain name, well, I just feel like there'd be a lot of questions from the media, and then that would just create a whole distraction in the room. You just want to limit the amount of distractions in the room this year. Last year, there was a lot of noise, a lot of questions from the media that was just off-ice drama related, mostly had to do with Tkachuk. But now that he's gone, we shouldn't have to deal with that anymore. And if they can get the captaincy named before the start of the season, then all that noise will go out the window and they can just focus on the game. And then that would also allow the team to have that one guy to unite around. So I think this is an important decision for them to make. And who are the main candidates at this point? Well, Bruce Garriock reported as well that Thomas Chabot, Jake Sanderson, and Tim Stützle are considered the top three candidates. While many believe Sanderson is the frontrunner, Chabot has paid his dues. So those are the top three. I will say it doesn't seem like Stützle is in much of the conversations. Many of the articles that are out there at the moment are debating between Chabot and Sanderson. So I don't think Stützle is that much in consideration for it. Personally, I don't think he is really ready for the captaincy at this point. I still think he's a little too young, a little too immature for that role. However, I still think he would be a great candidate down the road for a captaincy, whether that be for the Senators or even another organization if he ends up going to another organization in the future. And also, I made a video regarding the captaincy a little under a month ago where I went through the top five. And all three of those players were in my top five. So if you want to check out that video, please go and do so. But the top two, Chabot and Sanderson, much debate going on right now between these two. I think both of them have a very strong case. Both would be great options for the role, but it's very, very, there's a big dispute going on who people really think should be the captain. And it's in many different articles, you'll see many different opinions. So if we see this one from Steve Warren, is between Sanderson and Chabot, the Senators' choice for captain should be obvious, shouldn't it be? And if you go ahead and read that article, he believes it should be Sanderson that should get the captaincy. And then if you look at this article from Bruce Garriock in the Ottawa Citizen, it is why Thomas Chabot deserves to be the Ottawa Senators' next captain. So, arguments for both sides, and I'm going to go through the arguments for Chabot and Sanderson. Then I'll give my opinion on who I think deserves it in the end. So let's go through the case that Thomas Chabot has for the captaincy. So Thomas Chabot he's the longest tenured senator currently on the roster. He's been on the team for around 10 years at this point. Started in the 2016-17 season. He was on the roster when they went on their run in the Eastern Conference Finals. Didn't play at all those playoffs, but he was still around. So he's had experience in playoffs and obviously the past 2 playoffs as well. And he's went through a lot of years of losing with the team. So he's been through it with the team. Basically from the moment he got a full-time role at the team, they weren't very good. That was when their fall off really started. They started trading guys like Carlson, Stone, Hoffman. All those guys just started going out the door. So Chabot really was put in a situation where he was kind of the main defenseman right out of the gate. And it was a hard transition period. There was a long transition period, a big rebuild. And now we are here. They've been in the playoffs past 2 years. So the Sens have been on an uprise. Hopefully they can keep that up as well. And he's also someone who's experienced with the media. Someone who he's been in the league for a good amount of time here, around 8 or 9 years. And he has experience with the media. He is one of the main voices you see after any game, after wins, losses, even just like off days. Chabot is someone you see very often speaking to the media. Another area that is important that he's able to speak to the media in English and French. That's not something that comes up often, but Ottawa is a very bilingual city, especially with Gatineau right on the other side of the river. And the Senators are trying to grow their Gatineau fan base for the Senators. So having a captain who can speak to both their English and French fans, I think would go a long way to growing the fan base as a whole. So that's Chabot's case. Now, what is Sanderson's case? Well, Sanderson, he leads the charge on the defensive end. He is one of the top defensemen in the league, and for the Senators, he is obviously the main guy. Power play, penalty kill, crucial minutes down the stretch. He is always going to be on the ice for those moments, and he's always going against the top players on the team. So, you know, when they're trying to defend the main guys on the other team, Sanderson is the main guy. He's going to be in a lot of those situations, and that is someone a main leader would be doing. You see a lot of teams having their number one defenseman as the captain, and it just makes a lot of sense because they are on the ice a lot, and Sanderson included. He led the time on ice for the Senators in the past 3 years. He's always averaging around the 24, 25 minute mark. Sometimes his minutes get up to 30, depends on the situation of the games. So he's always out there a ton. He's always playing in big moments. And he also has that security with his contract. His contract, he's signed through the 2031-32 season. So if you were to name Sanderson the captain, you wouldn't have to worry about him leaving in just a few years because he is signed until 2032. So obviously, both players have a case. Chabot's case is more the fact that he's just been in the organization for a longer period of time, and that he's older, he's more media trained. For him, it's more off-ice stuff. Where Sanderson, he is probably the best player on the team, probably the most important player on the team, and he also has that security with his contract. Where Chabot only has 2 years left on his deal. So if you are to name Chabot the captain, you need to ensure that he is willing to re-sign with the team and that they can get that contract done sooner rather than later, because obviously you don't want to name Chabot the captain and then he just walks out the door in 2 years and then you're in this process all over again. So what do I think? Well, like I said in my previous video about the captaincy, my opinion has not changed. I still believe Thomas Chabot should be named the captain for the Senators. I just think it's time for him. He was in the captaincy race when Tkachuk got it. 3 or 4 years ago. I can't remember how long it's been. But Chabot, he deserves at this point. Been with the organization for a long time. And I just think you need someone to be the voice, especially for a Canadian market. He's going to be in the media a lot. He's going to be speaking a lot. And I think Chabot is just a overall better speaker with the media. Obviously, I know that's a bit of it doesn't really... Most people may not think that's that important, but in a Canadian market, I think it is very important. And when I see Chabot on TV, he's always yelling at guys across the bench. It seems like he is a big voice for the team, where Sanderson is a little soft-spoken. He's still a little young, so he's maybe still learning on how to adapt in those more leadership roles. But Chabot, he knows how to deal in high-end situations. He's been the assistant captain for, seems like forever at this point. So I think it is time for Chabot to get the captain. I think being able to speak French as well is a big addition for the captain. We haven't had that for a Senators captain in a while because Carlson was a Swede, Alfredson was a Swede, Spezza, I don't know if he spoke French that much. So having a bilingual captain, I think, would go a long way into building this fan base in the Ottawa region and also in the Gatineau region. So overall, I do think Sanderson still has a strong case, and obviously I wouldn't be mad if they give it to Sanderson. He'd obviously be my next option. It's not even close. Obviously Stützle's there as well, but again, I still think he's a little young, a little inexperienced, and a little immature as well for that role. But I think Chabot should get it. Hopefully they're able to figure out a contract if they were to give him the captaincy. Obviously he can't sign anything at this point. He needs to wait for this year to end for that contract to kick in. But if they can get a little bit of a mutual agreement before next season, then I think it's a no-doubter that Chabot should be the captain. What do you think? Do you think it should be Chabot or Sanderson, or do you think it should be someone else? I've been seeing a lot of Claude Giroux captaincy comments in the comment section. He's a very experienced player, has done it before in Philly. I don't know how much longer he has in the league, but obviously a great candidate as well. So who do you think should it be? Chabot, Sanderson? Let me know in the comments. Another reminder, please go down and hit that subscribe button. It helps the channel out a bunch, and it allows you to stay updated with Senators Digest content. That is all I have for you today. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.